Today's episode of Titus and Tate is, what are we calling this, Tate? The NCAA tournament is canceled. You and I've not seen you in over a week. You've been quarantined.
Yes.
I'm also quarantined.
Yes.
We're talking via Skype. I'm in my kitchen. Where are you?
I am in an office in an undisclosed location. I cannot even go to my own home. I've been banned by my roommates. It is a time unlike any other. We both know this. I think the best way to describe this podcast is I don't know. I'm not sure. We know John Rothstein likes to say this is March, and this is March ? Is where I'm at now. This is March. I don't know.
This is the first podcast we've done since the NCAA tournament was canceled, so I imagine we'll talk a little bit about that. Rick Pitino was hired, Tate. He's got a job. He's back in college basketball. The world needed a hero. Rick Pitino said, "I will be your hero. I am back." We'll hit on that a little bit, but yeah, this is very bizarre territory, as is as is going to be the case for a while going forward. But we'll see where this thing goes.
When you try to compartmentalize it and piece it together from the last time we actually spoke on the air, it is so much has changed that I don't even know where to start. But I think it's a pretty simple, point to the pyramid, which is there is no March Madness. It is canceled.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. It feels like you and I last did a show together like a month ago.
Or in 1918. I'm not even sure.
Yeah. And it was only a week ago. So March Madness is canceled. We've had some time to digest that. How are you feeling about that in the set? Like, where have you landed on this? And I guess I'll go first. I'm asking a question that I want to answer myself, which is to say that I weirdly have found myself not like I don't want to watch old highlights. I don't want to watch old clips. It's like. I don't know how to describe the mindset I'm in, but I'm trying to just not. I don't know how I ended up here, but I don't want to consume any March Madness content of any kind whatsoever because it's too fresh. I don't want to rewatch clips from back in the day. I didn't want a bracket to come out. I know a lot of people did. They wanted to see. They thought the teams deserved to see where they would have been seated and all of that. I didn't want that. I don't even want to talk about it. And I don't know why I'm very surprised that that's my feeling. But when I see people tweeting highlights, they're like, hey, this is, we don't have March Madness, but we do have this memory from 6 years ago. This happened in the tournament or whatever.
Remember Eric Maynor? Right, and everyone's like, yeah, I remember Eric Maynor. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm scrolling right past it, and I think it's just because it's too fresh. It hurts too much. And I think that might be what it is. I don't know what's going on. It's very bizarre that I feel that way. How do you feel? Where do you stand on all that?
I would say it's the NCAD for us instead of the NCAA, which is the disassociation, like you said. I mean, it's kind of like we're not even sure what to do with ourselves because we are so bought into what we expect from this time in March. And it's also weird because, funny enough, I mean, the joke, it's obviously not all a joke, but this year in college basketball, we've talked about how bad it is. This is officially the worst season of college basketball in the sense that there's no definitive answer to who the winner is. There was no definitive answer during the season who the winner was or who the best team was, really. The coaches think it might be Kansas. But again, that whole ethos has led to this, which is nothing. We have nothing to show for any of this, which is why we want to disassociate.
There are people that are going to respond to us and say, you guys say it's the worst season every year. As though
this is officially the worst.
Doesn't. You know what's funny? I want to. I think I found my way back in. One thing I am interested in. Here's how I get plugged back into wanting to consume college basketball again. So everyone seems to have found their corner. All the media people have found their corner. I saw Goodman is doing the one shiny moment on Twitter, where he's like, "You send me any team that made a one shiny moment video, and I will retweet it." And then SVP is doing his senior night thing, where it's I want to tell the stories of all the seniors that didn't get their final send off. Even though they all kind of did get their senior nights, but I understand what he means by that. Everyone kind of has picked their little lane that this is how I'm going to mourn the loss of March Madness. I want my lane, Tate, to be I will retweet any instance of a coach saying that he had he thought he was going to win the national championship. He was convinced that he was winning the national championship. It started with John Calipari, who suspended Ashton Hagans, who was butting heads with Ashton Hagans, and then as soon as the tournament was canceled, says, "I love this team more than any team I've had in 11 years. He loves it more than the Anthony Davis national title team. He loves it more than the 38-0 team. He loves, he loves it more than the Tyler Ulis Jamal Murray team, which I really enjoyed. The Malik Monk, Bam Adebayo, De'Aaron Fox, the team that was crying when they lost to Luke May, and that was like everyone was so heartbroken about that in Big Blue Nation. He loves this team more than any of those other teams, and it definitely has nothing to do with the fact that he doesn't have to actually go out and prove it in the NCAA tournament, so now he can conveniently just say it. So with that, I have a feeling he's started a precedent, and we're going to hear this where coaches are over the coming months, as everyone's quarantined and we're desperate for content, and people are just going to interview all these coaches. We're going to hear from like 28 coaches that say, I feel like I had the national title team. Whereas if you would have polled college basketball coaches like 3 weeks ago and said, how do you feel about your team? I think like 5 coaches would have been like, I like them. I think they're okay.
I think that if you look at it, one, Coach Calipari is a genius, right? And again, like you said, he's a trendsetter. So he puts it out to the world. This team would have won the national championship. And, Evan Daniels, he's a great reporter for Scott.com. He did their 247, and he did the full thing with all the coaches. And they did a whole poll, like who would have won. And I think 49 votes said Kansas. And, you go down the list, it's like the usual suspect. Dayton's in there, Gonzaga's in there, yada, yada, yada. But the funniest part of the whole poll, right? John Calipari, again, said this team would have won the national. He believes they would have won the national championship. Mm-hmm. All these coaches were asked by Evan Daniels. Not one said Kentucky. Not one said Louisville. Not one of them. So it's funny to me, like you said, that he would say this, considering the fact that the coaches in the world were like, there's no way. In fact, we saw Calipari in Vegas again. He said Ohio State was the best team in the country at that point, and that his team had a lot to figure out, and that they were kids at this point. That was in December. So it's funny how quickly that changed. But what I want to ask you is what coach, like how far is it down the line? Is Frank Haith going to come out and say we were going to win the national championship? Because that's the next step.
Frank, projection said you weren't even making the tournament. He's like, no, you don't understand. We were going to go on a run. We were going to win the American, and then we were going to win the national championship. I have no doubt in my mind. I would do the same thing. I would, if I was a coach, why not? Why not say that? I realistically do think there are going to be a lot of coaches that I don't think they're going to say national championship, but they're definitely going to say Final Four. I think it is going to be a Dick Vitale situation where we're going to have 16 teams in the Final Four at least. I mean, Wisconsin. If you really do think about it though, because like what's happening, what is happening is you're hearing from all these programs about how, like teams that didn't get a chance, and you really think about it. This happens every year in March, but like every year it plays out where like only one team does actually become the team of destiny. But this year we don't get to see who it was. So we're left with all these teams that truly believe they're the team of destiny. Wisconsin feels like they're the team of destiny. They're really hot. They snuck in to they backdoored their way into winning the Big Ten title and getting the 1 seed. They were really hot. San Diego State, they feel like they were the team of destiny. Dayton obviously feels like a team of destiny. Michigan State feels like a team of destiny. Kansas, you start going down the list, and all these teams are like, yes, I see a path where we were part of the team of destiny, and now we don't get a chance to prove it. But it's convenient because you don't have to prove it. It's great. I think this is going to be a positive for all these teams.
I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, for the legacy, and you can always tell a story that like that was the year, you know what I mean? And I think you mentioned all the little tropes that everyone's up to, like to kind of fill that void. And my favorite was Mark Pope with BYU. And I already brought them up earlier because I love this BYU team. He got Greg Gumbel and everyone to put together what would have been Selection Sunday for BYU. And then he basically got them to get their seed, and they all recorded on a voice note or whatever they did, sent it to BYU. They pieced it together in a little package, and he played it for his team. And then, at the end, they're like, look, this BYU team, they seem like they're destined for Atlanta. That was like the last line.
Right.
So, like, every team was destined for Atlanta. That's the story. Everyone would have gone to Atlanta.
Yeah,
but no one did.
But no one actually did. The one thing missing from that video was we needed a shot of the BYU team sitting there eating like their plate of food, and then it cuts to them, and then they just stay still for 15 seconds, and then they jump up.
Yes.
And then they jump up right as CBS cuts away from him. That's what we really needed. So where do you stand on like consuming March Madness content? Like, how are you mourning? How are you processing all of this? Are you taking a similar path of me? As like I think it's because like I think if we start acknowledging the past, if I'm going to start watching all these other videos, it's kind of like me accepting that the tournament's not coming. So I keep telling myself I don't want to watch old videos. I'm going to wait for the real thing. I don't want your turkey bacon. I want the real thing. Cook me up some real bacon. I know it's coming. I know. I refuse to accept this reality. I think that might be what I have going on. How are you processing it though?
And in terms of turkey bacon, I'll say this, I think that I'm just trying to be healthy because I'm worried. So I'm going to eat the turkey bacon. So I'm going to watch the highlights, I'm going to engage in all this sort of stuff because I just want to feel it. You know what I mean? Like the other day, I mentioned Eric Maynard, but then someone sent me the Lehigh game, CJ McCollum, like the little 6-minute package of CJ McCollum tearing up Duke in 2012. I loved it. You know what I mean? And then I loved it so much. I was like, let me go look up that Mercer game. And then I'm watching Jabari Parker lose to Mercer, and I'm like, this is a lot of fun. And then I'm watching Ali Faroukamesh, hit big shots. I'm like, man, this is great. Jesperson hitting his shot. So I went like on a little tangent on Saturday when I was not feeling great at all. I was like, let me just like try to cope a little bit and just try to have a moment of March Madness where I can feel it. The time that it really hit me and I had your disassociation feeling was on Sunday. When it was actually Selection Sunday, we had big plans, for the people out there that are listening. We were going to do a full-on show at the Fox lot. It was going to be blown out Selection Sunday. We're going to have the tuxedos on. The bag boys are back. We're dropping the bag corporately. I was very excited about all this stuff, That was the day that really hit me because I knew this year was going to end one way. And I knew it. And deep in my loins that Bill Self was going to win the title. Bill Self was going to get a middle finger to the NCAA, and Snoop Dogg was going to come down on stage and start rapping in it. That's all I had, And to be robbed of that moment, that really hurt.
Yeah, Sunday sucked. I went and picked up my tux at the dry cleaners, and that was just such a sad situation to have to pick that thing up and not get a chance to wear it. And yeah,
I've been quarantined so long, I wasn't able to take mine to the dry cleaning before I became quarantined. So.
If I'm being honest too, I think part of my disassociation too is like it is very bizarre to be living in the world right now and to pretend like the tournament matters.
Exactly.
Like that's the other thing that's weird. Like I even feel weird like doing the show right now because like I don't know. On the one hand, it's like you gotta maintain a sense of normalcy in your life, and like we should probably keep trying to do our job and I don't know if you call this entertainment to people, but whatever it is for people, keep doing the show. But on the other hand, it's like, who cares? Like who ultimately cares that, I don't know. There's like more serious things going on. So it's like just really bizarre because, I mean, I said that in my rambling monologue, just like how bizarre that whole scene was of the Big East was playing and Rob Stone's in the studio talking about how every other tournament is canceled. The world is ending. Stay inside. Yeah. Don't talk to anyone. Don't get within 10 feet of anyone. Sanitize everything. All right, now back to the Garden where St. John's and Creighton are squaring off.
Are going to body up against each other and So
that was
that was the weirdest part of the time.
By the way, that game they were supposed to not have any fans in the crowd. There were at least 1,000 with that game. So like I turned that on. Like I even tweeted that. Like I'm kind of glad that the Big East tried to play because it showed how there was never any hope that could happen where we could play these games with like not that many people in the crowd. Because the essential people, I mean, my God, the one funny silver lining of it all was like they said essential people only, and then you got the St. John's mascot, whatever the hell that thing is, sitting in the stands by himself, and you're like, how is this essential? Who decided that this was essential?
He did. He was like, I will be at this game in the crowd. Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's a very serious, I mean, all of it's very serious, and we try to do a funny, quirky show in college basketball. But again, none of this has to do with college basketball. And I think, it comes back to all of these players, like you said, Scott Van Pelt wants to pay, homage to Miles Powell and Marcus Howard and Jake Toulson and these guys that are leaving, or Anthony Cow and guys that are leaving college basketball and familiar faces that we've seen around the game. Udoka Azubuike. And they're gone, and we may not see them in this space again, and they never got their quote-unquote rightful farewell, in the general, monoculture of we're all watching March Madness. We all see this. We all remember Adam Morrison's last game. We all remember J.J. Redick's last game. We won't remember Udoka Azubuike's last game, really, And I think that's the only thing that I can feel like the connection of, like, I hate that for those guys. I hate that they don't have that moment of closure, but it's such a bigger moment collectively that we almost as a college basketball community have to come together. And I think I have to give kudos to the Jay Billises of the world and the Dickie Vitales of the world, because I can't believe that they were so initially on the, forefront of, we can't have a tournament. I did not expect that to be the response to this, but I knew that I did not think that we were going to have a tournament as soon as I was watching the game live in Utah, or they cut away to Utah on NBA TV when I was watching, and they said they're not playing the game. I knew at that point something had happened. Someone on the court or someone close, like a coach or someone had it, and when that moment happened, I was like, if professional basketball players are not going to be playing, they cannot send amateur basketball players to play. That was like the first time it hit me. And then from there, it was kind of like, this in the back of, well, I mean, I guess they still could. And then as we kept going through the fallout, it was like, oh, the AC tournament's done and the Big Ten is done and da-da-da. And Duke, let me just say this, I make fun of Duke a lot on this program. A lot of people think that I hate Duke more than I love Carolina. And that's not true. But I like to make fun of Duke. But I will point out the fact that Duke Hospital is an amazing hospital. The infrastructure around them outside of Coach K is, full of very good people, usually, for the most part. I'm not including Coach K in that, but like the people surrounding. And Kevin White made a very strong decision and bold decision to say, we're not going to be part of the NCAA tournament, which I think the NCAA is getting a little bit of credit for what the institutions were doing themselves, which also leads to a kind of larger conversation about the NCAA. And if Duke or Kansas says, hey, we want to pay our players or do whatever, then the NCAA is going to react. So we kind of learned the infrastructure of how it really works. It's like, if the power players want to do something and make a decision, the NCAA will follow suit. And I think outside of obviously the seriousness of the virus and everything going around in the actual public structure, we learned about the real structure of the LA, which is Duke runs the show. Kevin White and Duke. Kevin White runs a member committee. He's like, we're not going to do this. This is not happening. This is not safe. And the NCAA follows suit. That's not the case. And that's what I kind of learned from all this, as far as like what the trickle down, economics are of the NCAA a little bit.
We learned that, and we learned that the Big East is the toughest conference after all. I mean, that they were playing through
the old Big East.
The Ivy League canceling was a big one too, because I was racking my brain about that. Where I was like, tournament. I get, that was really sad for you. I know how excited you were looking, how much you're looking forward to watching that. I was like trying to rack my brain, because I'm like, all right, if Corona is such a big deal that the Ivy League doesn't think that they can play their tournament, why would they send Yale to the NCAA tournament? And I still wasn't really quite sure as to why they didn't just say, like, we're not sending any team to the tournament. Maybe you could argue that they left that up to Yale's decision at the time. Like, that was a decision Yale could make at the time, whatever. But I just started thinking about, like if someone else cancels their tournament, what do they do with the auto bids? Like, I just started like trying to figure out this work, because the structure was slowly getting pulled apart. And for me, the first thread that was pulled was the Ivy League tournament getting canceled. But I don't know, man. It's just such a weird time. Like, it's like I said, it's so weird to not have March Madness, and that in and of itself would make my existence bizarre. Just the fact that it's March and there's not college basketball being played. But then on top of that, you have like real life shit that's going on, and it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing? And I mean, Brian Curtis is a guy that you and I both know, and I read his piece today about, like, the sports media aspect of this, and how, in journalism, sports media, we are the joke. You know what I mean? Everyone makes fun of journalists that are in sports because they don't do anything. They're playing with toys over in the corner, and they don't really matter to journalism. But what Scott Van Pelt's of the world, and what a lot of people have done in journalism in the sports world, is basically use this as a way to get in that larger conversation, which is something that you and I, have had to almost be forced to do, even though that's the necessary aspect of sports journalism, what it used to be at some point back in the day. But this is now a larger conversation, and the fact that we don't have sports to be an escape from the harsh reality of the time is unprecedented, because we've always had something. I mean, I know some people are watching UFC, or they're finding, a race between, two 12-year-olds outside and betting on it, or whatever they're doing now, and finding weird sports. The marble racing. Yeah, there's all types of. That's where we are, man. It's a very strange world, and we ruin words. Not us, but the world ruins words. Unprecedented is actually what this is. This is unprecedented.
Well, I read
folks.
I read Curtis's article that he put on the Ringer today, and I strained my neck. I was nodding along so hard. Where the whole premise is basically like everyone in sports media is a slapdick. It's just what degree of a slapdick are you? You know, like the guys who take themselves, the most serious sports writer on earth is still a sports writer. You're still like covering, like you still do not matter. And it's like, I think this situation, why it kind of rocks. Like I'm just speaking from personal experience. I'm not going to compare my experience to anyone else, but like why I feel like I'm having an existential crisis with it all, and why maybe I don't care about the tournament as much as I thought. I don't care about watching old highlights and all that, is because I realize how ultimately insignificant I am to society at large. That like there is no, I offer nothing to this world other than talking about 19-year-olds playing basketball, and it's just a weird spot to find yourself in when like shit's hitting the fan and you want to help and you want to contribute to society, but you're like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to continue to do a podcast except in my kitchen, and you know, maybe that will help.
Our world has always been, tied to a reality at some level, right? So now we're living in hypotheticals, which is, I think the big discussion, after the fact that the tournament was canceled came out, there was all these reports like, well, they thought about doing a 1 through 16 seed in Atlanta and different locations and letting them play. And, there was all a reaction to that. And then some of the coaches and people wanted, to know what their seed would be. These kids need to know, what they would have been in the tournament. They deserve that moment. They need to see that. And I've even seen like the News and Observer did, their own 68. We did our own bracket, with our 68 teams, and they projected out what would happen. I think that's all fine and dandy, but again, you're living in hypotheticals, and I think that's the weirdness for us. You know what I mean? It's like I'm all dandy with that, and Jay Billis said it perfectly. He's like, that's for Lenardi and Jerry Palms of the world. Let them live in the hypotheticals. That's what's fun during the regular season, because all that is hypothetical. But then we get reality, right? The fact that there is no reality to come, it's like, let's get away from the hypotheticals, because now it's a part of that ilk. It's hypothetical.
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah. So talk about something that's tangible then. Instead of arguing over who would have won the tournament and all that other stuff, where do we fall on the eligibility issue of? Because that's come up that the seniors should get another year. The NCAA has already said that the spring sports, who haven't even started, I think most of them have not even started their seasons yet. Correct? I believe even if they have,
baseball,
the NCAA
I think baseball started. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but they said the all the spring sports you'll get another year of eligibility if you want it, and they'll figure that out. And there's been a call now for these basketball guys, the seniors in particular. Because so many of these guys were lovable. I mean, Cassius Winston, I think, is at the top of the list in terms of like the guy you're rooting for, the senior that you're rooting for. That maybe I'm speaking just for myself, but that's the guy I feel the most for, just given like everything he went through this year with her, and yeah, and then on top of that, just like the ups and downs that Michigan State had, and like Josh Langford, who everyone has kind of forgotten about, but was a senior as well on this team and didn't play a game, and just everything surrounding Michigan State, and then to have them playing so well heading into the Big Ten tournament, like a guy like Cassius Winston, who you really feel for, especially because, like, let's be honest, I don't see what his NBA future is. Like he's probably, if you talk to the experts, I'm not a draft expert, but draft experts seem to think that he is he's bound for a career overseas professionally. So, March Madness was going to be his like one shining moment, for lack of a better term. Yeah. It was going to be his one time to, this was his last moment to kind of do it on a massive stage in front of. So now everyone's saying, and by everyone I mean like 5 people, but that's enough. They're saying we should allow seniors to play Tate. Where do you fall on this? Give them one more year.
I fall in. Let's just be sensible about it, right? Like, I mean, I know it's all about scholarship limitations, and it's all about the fact that we can't fit these rosters together, and it would cost money for the schools. Everyone's making enough money to add 2 or 3 guys that are seniors that are on scholarship to come back and give them one extra year. I saw someone even suggest that they can't play until we get to tournament time. And I was like, that would make absolutely no sense. So if they're going to do something as stupid as that, which is like Cassius Winston's going to sit out the entire year, and then when the tournament comes, he's going to like show up to Michigan State and say, "What's up, boys? Let me take your starting spot." Like Rocket Watts sit on the bench.
No, I actually like that idea. Instead of Cassius Winston isn't at Michigan State that whole time though. No, but not a situation where Cassius Winston goes back to Michigan State and then sits the whole time. It's a situation where Cassius Winston gets to play professionally, and then he takes a hiatus in his professional season and goes back and joins the team for the tournament run. I want that. That's what I want.
We call that? That's the Rick Pitino. He's doing professional basketball in Greece, and then he comes back to college basketball and he gets the opportunity that fits him right. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm ready for the Big Ten tournament. Cassius Winston is back. We're gonna make a run. I could do that."
Yeah, imagine like that's a great idea. Imagine Obi Toppin, who's going to be like a top 5 pick, and he's playing in the league and he's averaging like 15 and 6 a game as a rookie, and then in the middle of March, a 1-month hiatus from whatever team he's playing for. He's on the Cavs or the Warriors or something like that, and he just takes a 1-month hiatus to go join Dayton and try to win a national title that he didn't get a chance to win this year. I like it. I like that idea.
I could do that. I do think that the only thing that I will say that can salvage this whole, you mentioned like, what are we going to do? It's like, it's a pitch process, right? Everyone's on Twitter. Everyone that's like the media, everyone wants to like give their idea for how we can solve this, you know what I mean? And we're playing into that game right now by trying to figure out how to solve this. But I do find that interesting where it's so unprecedented that something drastic could happen where the NCAA could come out and say, Mamadi Diakite can come back to Virginia next year. He can play. You know what I mean? And he's got the full year. Cassius Winston can come play. Marcus Howard, Miles, everyone, they can come back and play because, I mean, they, like you said, they didn't get their shot. They didn't get their one shining moment. So maybe this is the way to repay them back. But I don't understand. I don't know what the ripple effect is for all that. And obviously, a lot of people were saying there's cancellation, there's postponement, which the NCAA postponed the season. This is not professional sports. There was no way that it could work. And as much as we don't want to admit this, like, you know, March Madness is March Madness. That's trademarked. It's in May, if it's in August, if it's in October, like they hurt their own. Like they're not going to do that. You know what I mean? So when it was canceled for a reason. This will be something that we talk about years to come. We'll always remember 2020, the year that we didn't have a tournament, the year that we didn't have a champion. And if you're a Virginia fan, I think this is one of those weird moments where like they hadn't won a title. You know, they had the NITs. Yeah, I mean, look, you got the hat on. Like they get 2 years of being the national champions after all that talk that they had to listen to since Tony went to Virginia. You know what I mean? Like, and now they get an extra year to just kind of gloat about the fact that we're the national champions. So I think, you know, that's an interesting wrinkle to all this too, where we're always going to remember the year that Virginia was able to kind of carry the torch for 2 years. We should have Kyle Guy back on the podcast to talk about winning the national championship again. Like we'll just replay that game. Talk about those.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Have Kyle Guy back on. Virginia, that's God's plan all along, is for Virginia to remain national champions. They get another year. If I can put my serious cap on for a second. I have my Virginia cap on. Yeah, if you're watching on Fox Sports, I'm paying homage to Virginia for being the reigning national champion still. Longest title reign in the history of college basketball. If I can put my serious cap on for a second. So you mentioned how everyone seems to want to salvage this somehow. We want to postpone it instead of cancel it. We want to come up with a rule that allows these guys to come back. Everyone's desperate to figure out something. Like we can't just let this go. And part of me thinks like maybe that's why I don't want to watch highlights and I don't want to try to salvage it, because I know you can't salvage it. And I think it's like maybe I mean, listen, you go to college again. Let me get serious for a second. You go to college. The joy of college basketball, the joy of the college experience, is these guys show up on campus. The stereotype, the trope is they show up on campus as boys, they leave as men, and you watch them over 4 years. They learn life lessons. They mold into more mature adults, and then they get spit out into the world and they contribute to society. And that's the whole arc of these guys. I think that this is just one of those life lessons that like sometimes shit happens. Sometimes like really, really bad things happen. There's no one to blame. There's no one to point the finger. It's like adversity is going to be thrown at you, and you can't like get what you want. And I think like in that regard, it's weirdly like a good lesson for the players in a weird way. I don't know how else to describe it. This is going to happen again in their lives where like they have all their ducks in a row. They think something should happen a certain way. And then for no reason whatsoever, it can't be explained. Something happens. It ruins everything. And then how do you respond? You know, like that's the that's the lesson to be learned here, I guess. And I guess like that's how I see it, is just like the tournament's not happening. There's no point in trying to salvage it. There's no point in trying to pretend like it is happening. We just have to pick ourselves up, figure this shit out that we're going through as a society right now, and then let's reconvene in November and try to have a new season next year. Anyway, we can talk about Rick Pitino
Absolutely.
now.
It's a real conversation for sure. And like you said, I mean, sometimes you don't get what you want, but you get what you need. And I think, right now we need to all come together and like you said, focus on what actually matters in this life and realize that March Madness is a precious thing. And when we have it in our lives, we need to enjoy it. We need to embrace it. And I know next year, hopefully in 2021, when it is back, we're going to ride high. We will be in tuxedos. Yeah. We will be dropping bags. We will be having the best times of our lives.
My question to you is this. Do you think it should work like skins in golf where next year is worth 2 titles? Whoever wins it next year can now hang 2 banners? I think so. I think that's the solution. I think it just carries over. Next year's tournament the stakes have never been higher for the NCAA tournament next year.
Here's my pitch. In a time of pitches, I'm going to take the serious cap back off. In a time of pitches, Condoleezza Rice, get a committee together. And I don't care how many people are in the committee. I don't care if Colin Powell's on it. I don't care. Get a committee together and basically get in a room. And this is 4 months down the line, maybe in August, hopefully, if everything's going well and everyone stays quarantined. In August, Condoleezza Rice gets a group together and they decide once and for all who is the national champion. And we go old school AP style. Back in the day before we had the BCS or anything, where we just decided who the national champion. When Auburn, when they were like, we're also national champions. Or we had this whole argument. And they get in a room, Condoleezza Rice releases the report. She says, Kansas national champion. Congratulations to Coach Self and the KU Jayhawks. And it goes out to the world. And then we just get the responses, because there are going to be multiple teams that think they should have won it. Dayton will probably come out. Gonzaga will come out. Kentucky will obviously come out. Cal will come out. And then we just get, like you said, a setup for that 2021 title to mean something even more, because KU will have a target on their backs. Because I think general consensus, I know that I feel this way, Kansas was the national champion in my mind based off the product of the regular season, what Doak had done at the end of the year, the run that they were kind of on. So if Condoleezza Rice can put a committee together, announce a national champion, and then just start the whole drama around that, I think that may be good for college basketball.
I like it, except do it like the Helms Foundation, and instead of doing it in August, do it like in 40 years from now, and have a bunch of people who weren't even alive. who weren't even alive during this time. Yeah, and they're arguing over it. They're pouring over the numbers.
Third is the coach. He's the coach at Kansas now. He's third generation Self, and he's arguing over his grandpa.
That's with you. I think Kansas was obviously going to win the national championship, as was Dayton, as was I think Gonzaga was definitely winning as well. I think you got to throw Michigan State in there, and I think Florida State was also going to win the national championship. So those are my 5 national champions. Hang a banner, all 5 of you. Congratulations, you did it. I think with the eligibility thing, because I've made this point before on this show, I don't think there should be eligibility limits, period. I think the way to handle the eligibility issue is now is a great time for the NCAA to finally come out and say, you're eligible as long as you're pursuing a higher degree, you're eligible. Like I've never had a good explanation as to why this is a bad thing. Where if you're pretending you're an organization, the NCAA, and you care about the students first, the student part of student athlete first. That's why they're called student athletes, not athlete students. If that is the case, then if a guy like Cassius Winston, for example, wants to now get his master's, he may have already got his master's. If he wants to go to medical school at Michigan State and also play basketball on the side, he should never run out of eligibility. As long as he's like on track to continue to pursue like a higher degree, I don't understand why you wouldn't reward that. Like wouldn't that be a dream scenario for? Isn't that the NCAA's wet dream is like Cassius Winston plays 12 years of college basketball and he's just like he graduates and he's like a lawyer and a orthopedic surgeon and a philosopher, and I don't understand how this is a bad thing, because the counter to this is like, well, you can't have like super talented guys just sticking around forever, and it's like, well, I mean, professional basketball is going to be more lucrative always, so there's going to come a certain point where like if a guy's talented enough, he's like, to hell with this, I'm not going to keep working on my 7th degree at school. I'm going to go get some money in the NBA or overseas or whatever. I don't know. This is a great time to put that rule into place. Why do we have eligibility limits at all? It doesn't make any sense.
The only thing that popped in my mind, you're like the NCAA's dream for this. All I could think about was when Eric Montross signed a 13-year contract with the Celtics as a rookie. And I just kept thinking about the idea of Eric Montross playing 13 years of college basketball and how much people would hate North Carolina if he was the center at North Carolina for 13 years and left, as you said, an orthopedic surgeon. You know, I mean, you got to watch a guy dominate March, and then he's going to fix your ankle or whatever's going on.
I mean, there are obvious limitations to it because at some point, like, a guy's going to run out of like degrees he can go after, and then that's when his eligibility gets exhausted. Or at some point, he's going to be like, "I'm 34. Like, I don't want to be in college anymore.
Let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here." Like, it's going to run its course, but I don't understand how that doesn't feed into exactly what the NCAA purports itself to be, which is like exalting the student above the athlete part of it all. And keep getting and the benefit to, like, if we're using Cassius Winston as an example, benefit to him is like he's always wanted to be a doctor. Say he can now go to medical school for free because he'll have he'll be on scholarship versus like going to play professionally and come back and maybe has to pay his own way now, and maybe he doesn't have that much money because he was playing in Lithuania making $78,000 a year for 6 years or whatever it was, and he doesn't know if he can afford it or. So he's like, no, I'm going to stick around at Michigan State. I'm going to pursue a medical degree. And then after 6 more years of playing basketball, then I'll go pro. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That sounds like a fair deal. And
idea.
Also, it makes it so much better because then you have like 30-year-olds playing 30-year-olds. You know what I mean? It's like it's just a weird twist of fate where it's like, these are actual student athletes. You know what I mean? These people are dedicated to the university. In fact, people like the professors, there's always, for people that don't understand this, the academia at institutions and the athletic departments usually don't get along, right? There's usually a different objective on both sides of things. You know, oddly enough, who would have thought? So the idea that the academia could involve with the actual, student athletes, I get these professors know Cassius Winston because he's been in classes for 8 years. That sounds great. I mean, that sounds like a win-win for everybody. So. Yeah, we'll just keep throwing out ideas for everyone because
that's great.
This is the time. This is the time when there's nothing going on. We'll just roll.
We have to talk about the one thing that is going on though, which is Rick Pitino has come back to college basketball.
Sports.
So this also happened pretty quickly. If we're talking about like the developing news and how the tournament was canceled, like in seemingly the snap of a finger, dare I say, there's a joke there, Tate. A 15-second joke in how this story developed.
Yes. Premature reports.
We got word. Sources close to the situation were in our ear. What was this? About a month ago. That
yes,
they
called
told
me
us
a month ago. More excited than anything.
I called you a month ago to tell you that very reliable sources were telling me that Dan Marley was going to get fired at Grand Canyon, and he knew he was going to get fired. And Dan Marley, he might quit before he's even fired because he knows he's about to get fired. And they were also telling me that the Jerry Colangelo, Rick Pitino relationship could be enough to bring the Godfather himself, Rick Pitino, back to the States and end up at Grand Canyon University, which like had my head spinning. I mean, the idea of Grand Canyon, we love that student section more than anything in the world. The idea that student section would be paired with this man was so exciting, and I talked myself into it. And then you dug up the clip. You remember when Louisville played at Grand Canyon, and then you found the screenshot of Pitino at the press conference standing in front of the GCU backdrop. And I had talked myself into Pitino coming home to Grand Canyon, and then Marley gets fired, and then you're hearing reports about Pitino has told his team in Greece that he's not coaching in Greece anymore. He's coming to college, and oh my God, like I don't know. It was everything I needed. Just I really thought it was about to happen, that he would go to Grand Canyon, and then in the snap of a finger, all the people that were in the know were like, no, he's going to Iona, and he ends up at Iona. Which I got to say, nothing against Iona, but this is a really disappointing result because you're talking like LMU is still open, Tate. It's a job that is right down the street from both of us. We could both be sitting courtside at every LMU game with Rick Pitino on the bench. I had that in my head that could possibly happen. Grand Canyon obviously was the place he had to be, and he ends up at Iona basically because he has an apartment in the city, and that was like his quote. He's like, I'm 25 minutes away from my apartment in the city. I love it. This is great. This was the job for me. Grand Canyon never had a shot. we have New York City Catholic Church, Adidas, and Rick Pitino are all four coming together in New Rochelle. That's how you say it. The suburbs of New York City.
Yes.
It's going to be fantastic. But I got to be honest. I would have cared a lot more if he went to Grand Canyon or LMU. That would have moved the needle for me. Iona, I'm slowly talking myself into it, but it was a selfish play. Rick was not thinking about the content. He was thinking about himself. He just wanted it to live there because he wants to live in New York City, and I get it. But at the time, Rick, we are starved for content now. I mean, the fact that he took the job so quickly proves that. Like, if he was smart, he would have drawn this out for months. He would have said, like, he's interested in coming back to college basketball. He would have done recruiting trips himself. He would have had people yell at him that he should be quarantined, and then he's just like, he's tweeting through it. Like, every time he tweets, he's like, flying across the country to go to Grand Canyon. And everyone's like, Rick, stay in your house. You're part of the problem. And he's like, trying to find this new job. And like, he never once addresses the criticism. Like, this is what he should have been doing. And we could have all been laughing at like how Rick Pitino is the face of college basketball and where is he going to end up? And he's just bouncing all over the country. That's the content we need in these dark times. And Rick Pitino instead took a job in the snap of a finger that does not really move the needle for me, but I'm slowly talking myself into it when I did the whole Adidas, Catholic Church, New York City, Rick Pitino thing. I'm back, I think. I think I'm in on this. But it's good to have him back. At the end of the day, it's good to have him back because when next season starts and we don't know what to talk about, we can always just pull up Iona, figure out what the hell is going on.
I will guarantee you this. Rick Pitino will say, "There's an I in Iona, and I am Iona." You know what I mean? Like, this is my pro. Like, I run everything here. And to me, there are two coaches in college basketball and professional basketball that have overlapped and have been basically just above all of it. And that's Larry Brown and Rick Pitino. And both of them have been able to maneuver the situations in multitudes of ways, right? By doing crooked things, but right on the line. And also being great basketball minds at the same time. And the article I read, Rick Pitino was like, they don't know how to play defense in Greece, but they do know how to run offense. So he learned all these new offensive sets that he's going to bring to Iona, and he's like excited to him in college basketball and thinks he's going to work people because they don't know how to deal with them because they're all these Euro sets. I believe that. Like, oh, that's going to be great. You got a defensive Rick Pitino team, all these like weird Euro sets. It's going to blow up that whole league. That'll be great. That makes a lot of sense to me. The only thing I will say is he's not like Larry Brown in the sense that Larry Brown was doing what you were talking about, which is like he made a tour of it. He was like, oh, SMU got the death penalty? They're down to get down like that? Yeah, I'll go to SMU. I'll blow it out. You know, I'll do the full thing. And it seems like Rick, he kind of would like dip his toes back in. Larry Brown never dipped his toes back in. He's like, oh, Kansas wants to get rid of me? Oh, I'm going to UCLA. Or like, you know, you want to get rid of me? Like, I'm trying to get the North Carolina job. Whatever it may be. He was always going full throttle. So I kind of respect Rick for being, you know, a little, you know, has a little bit of trepidation before he get back in the league. So good on you, Rick.
He says that this is the last job that he will have. Do you believe him, Tate? That this is the last coaching job he'll have?
No.
I don't either.
No, this is not the last coaching job. Yeah, no, absolutely not.
I don't either because I think
what is your number?
What?
What is your number? How many years?
What do you mean?
How many days?
How many years? I thought we were trying to guess his buyout. I thought that's what you meant. I give him 3 years, and I think what happens is this. No, I'm going to say 4 years. I think it's going to take 2 years for him to finally get clear of all the NCAA thing. Like, it's going to take 2 more years for the NCAA to finally be like, we're not doing anything with Rick Pitino. He's off the hook. We have bigger fish to fry. Feel free to hire. He's not going to get a show cause, but that's kind of what's looming right now is like, is the NCAA going to tag him with a show cause and all that? So he's going to get 2 years to do that. Then year 3, he starts really, he's got his like recruits and everything's kind of rolling. Year 4, he makes like the Sweet 16 Elite 8. And then that's when like, I don't know, St. John's is open again. And then they come calling and he's like, great, I can keep my apartment. I'm taking the St. John's job. And then, because like at that point, St. John's also like Rick Pitino can come back to like a major program because he has no violations anymore and everyone thinks he's clean. And yeah, the past is in the past. And yeah, I see that. That's how it's working out. There's no way he's retiring at Iona. There's no way. There's just no way.
No, he's going to get tired. He's going to get tired of the I'll tell you this: he's gonna get tired of the cold weather at some point, and he's gonna decide that he wants to move to somewhere like San Diego, and he's gonna pull like the San Diego State job. You know what I mean? He's gonna do something like
Mhm.
that, where it's like, I've done my due diligence here. I think 4 years is a great number. That was kind of the number I'm at. 4 years, builds his program up to 4 years. People can't really get mad at him for being there for 4 years. Like, give me 4 years, that's fine. And then he goes, makes a big leap. That's his final run. He's in warm weather, maybe Florida. That seems like a more New York move. So maybe he goes down somewhere for like
That's,
UCF or something down in Florida, and that's up. And I think he maybe wins a national title there. Honestly,
he goes to FIU, where his son coached.
seriously,
He takes over. Did you see
yeah.
his? Did you see? I think that was Richard Pitino, right? I think it was Richard Pitino that got asked about playing in front of no fans, because this was when it was announced that there were going to be no fans at the Big Ten tournament. Richard Pitino said, "I'm used to coaching against in front of no fans. I coached at FIU." I think it was him that said that. I might be putting words in his mouth, but I'm pretty sure it was him.
Well,
I might be thinking of
let's
another
just assume
coach.
he said that.
What else we got to hit before we get out of here? Is that it?
We just got to hit. I mean, we just got to hit, honestly, in general. I know that this is kind of a hodgepodge of thoughts. We have a plan. We will have a plan together to kind of cover college basketball at some level. I don't know if we want to do the full, like, retrospective. Oh, I remember. Oh, I remember when that happened. Oh, I remember when that happened.
Yeah.
But I think that we can have some fun with it. You and I, there's a lot of what if moments in college basketball. Like, what if Gordon Hayward made that shot in 2010? How different is
Mm.
college basketball if Brad Stevens wins the title that first year? Is he still in college basketball? You know, we can play some what if games, but we also can play some what if in the tournaments. Like, you know, maybe if UMBC doesn't get up by 16 points at one point, like, what happens to that Virginia team? Do they have the resiliency to make a run the next year, win a title? I don't know. Maybe we ask Kyle Guy, but we got good plans and good things coming up. I don't want to sound defeated, even though I am quarantined and obviously pretty defeated on my own individual terms. But as a podcast, as a unit, there will be brighter days, and that's all I can say.
Hopefully. I mean, that's
Hopefully.
what's crazy too, which is like yeah, we have plans, but my God, the world changes every 12 hours. Yeah, I have plans to continue the podcast, but if a state of emergency is declared such that, you know, people are stabbing each other, rolls of toilet paper, I'm not really sure I'm interested in coming on here and discussing whether Cade Cunningham is going to work out at Oklahoma State next year and how good do you think he's going to be.
Well, I'll talk to Gottlieb about that. Don't you worry.
Yeah, you'll keep it moving. The only other thing, I had two shout outs. I wanted to shout out Penny Hardaway, who said at the start of the year that he was going to win the national championship, and unfortunately he never got his opportunity. And so I want to retroactively, I know I only named 5 teams that were going to win the national championship. I want to add Penny to that list. Memphis was definitely going to win the national championship. And he somehow got out of it. Like two, you know what? Another shout out. 2 people got out of declarations. Number 1, Penny Hardaway said he's going to win the national championship. It was going very horribly wrong for him, and somehow he still wasn't wrong because the tournament didn't happen. So congratulations, Penny. And then our guy, the DePaul walk-on, what's his name? Pantelis or something. You know what I'm talking about, the guy with the rec specs.
Yeah.
I forget how to pronounce his name. I interact with him on Twitter every so often. Sorry, buddy. He had tweeted that if DePaul, like when DePaul was good, when they were like 6-0 or whatever it was, he had tweeted in November that if DePaul does not make the tournament, if DePaul is not a tournament team, he will shave his head. And then DePaul won their first game in the Big East tournament, and the Big East tournament got canceled, and the NCAA tournament got canceled before they technically lost in the tournament, in the Big East tournament. So he was technically still alive, even though DePaul was in 10th place in the Big East and was horrible and was definitely not making the tournament. He somehow weaseled his way out of that as well. So shout out to those 2 guys for like doing the Joe Namath and sticking your neck out and making bold claims that weirdly enough looked like they were going horribly wrong, but weirdly enough were saved in the end by the tournament being canceled.
Oh, and speaking of those terms, final shout out, NC State. Duke basically decided that they did not want to play in the ACC tournament, so they win that game due to a forfeit. So NC State made it the furthest in the ACC tournament, which means that they would have made it into the NCAA tournament, which means they would have made a run like 1983 because Kevin Keats is a winner. So add NC State to that list as well. NC
State also would have won a national title. Yeah. And I want to shout out. I want to shout out Greg Marshall for social distancing. I don't know if you're paying attention to this tape, but Wichita State's entire team is like transferring. It seems. I can't get a read on exactly how many guys are transferred, but every time I'm on Twitter and I hit refresh, Jeff Goodman's talking about some other guy that's leaving Wichita State. So Greg Marshall, he gets it. He is not part of the problem. He is social distancing. He's kicking all of his guys out, pushing them out the door, saying go somewhere else, and he's distancing himself from his own team. So respect to him for that. Good job,
Yeah,
Greg.
good job, Greg Marshall. Yeah, Marshall's Law. That's what it is.
There you go, Marshall. That's the martial law. There it is. We're living under martial law right there.
Yeah, there it is.
All right, we'll be back on Friday. Stay safe out there, everybody. I don't know what else to say. That's it.
Hunker down. Be safe. Be well. We'll see you on Friday.
For the best access, perspective, and personalities in all of sports, follow us at Fox Sports on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.